Let's talk about something that we've all been guilty of at some point in our lives, being too available. Always picking up the phone, always responding instantly, always saying yes. And while on the surface that may look like kindness, like dedication, or maybe just being dependable, underneath it carries a dangerous message, one that often goes unnoticed until it's too late. Here's the truth: constant availability diminishes your value. Now, I know that can sound harsh, even a bit transactional, but stay with me. This isn't about treating relationships like business deals. It's about understanding the basic psychology of human behavior and the subtle ways people interpret your boundaries, or your lack of them. We live in a time when attention is currency, time is precious, energy is finite, and when you're always available, what you're silently communicating is that your time doesn't carry weight, that your energy is cheap, that your presence is easy to obtain. And here's what happens next: people stop appreciating it. Psychologically, it taps into something simple but powerful. What's easily accessible loses its significance. It's not that people are inherently ungrateful or manipulative. It's just how our brains are wired. Think about it: the friend who's always there, always saying yes, always bending, they become the background noise. Reliable, but invisible. Respected for their consistency, perhaps, but not admired for their strength. And before you know it, you're being taken for granted, not out of malice, but out of human nature. The more someone is exposed to something on demand, the more they normalize it. What was once generous starts to feel expected. What was once thoughtful begins to seem obligatory. Availability, when given in excess, removes the element of choice. People stop seeing your presence as something you're choosing to give, and instead start assuming it's just what you do. And here's the kicker: when you're always there, people stop asking themselves if they even deserve your attention. They just assume it's owed to them. There's a philosophical weight to this. Think about what it means to be in control of your time, your energy, your attention. It means you recognize your own value, that you understand not everyone should have access to you, not all the time, that your presence should be something people notice when it arrives and feel when it's gone. This isn't about playing games or withdrawing as a form of manipulation. It's about intentional living. It's about choosing when to give and when to hold back, not out of spite, but out of wisdom. You are not infinite. Your ability to listen, to support, to give, those are limited resources. And when you act like they're unlimited, you end up depleted. And worse, you end up unappreciated. I see this especially in people who lead with empathy, the ones who want to be there for everyone, who feel guilty setting boundaries. But listen, kindness without boundaries is not kindness. It's self-abandonment. You think you're being generous, but what you're actually doing is training others to expect more than they deserve, more than you can reasonably give, and more than you're ever thanked for. There's a discipline in saying, "I can't talk right now," in choosing not to respond immediately, in prioritizing your own needs without apology. And that discipline communicates something powerful: I respect myself, I value my time, and I expect others to do the same. And here's the beauty of that shift. When you stop being overly available, you force others to step into awareness. They start paying attention. They notice when you do show up. They start to wonder, what does their time really cost? What does their attention mean? You elevate your presence simply by not giving it away so freely. This doesn't mean becoming cold or distant. It means becoming intentional. Think about the people you admire, the ones whose attention feels like a privilege, the ones who, when they walk into a room, command it. That kind of presence isn't built through overexposure. It's built through discernment, through restraint, through clarity on what matters most. There's also a deeper identity piece to this. When you're always available to everyone else, you slowly lose access to yourself. You stretch so thin that you don't even recognize your own needs anymore. And the scary part is, you start basing your worth on how useful you are to others. If you're not helping, if you're not solving, if you're not showing up, you feel less valuable. That's a dangerous pattern. Because your value is not determined by your accessibility. It's defined by your essence, your mindset, your integrity, your focus, your standards. The more you preserve those things, the more powerful your presence becomes. You walk differently when you know your worth. You speak with more clarity. You move with more confidence. You stop chasing and start choosing. You weren't born to be available to everyone. You were born to be intentional with your energy, your gifts, your space. Some people will only recognize your worth when they no longer have unrestricted access to it. That's not cruel, it's clarity. So, the next time you feel the impulse to reply immediately, to stretch yourself one more time, to be everywhere for everyone, pause. Ask yourself, am I offering this from strength or from fear, from clarity or from guilt? Because sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and others is to simply be unavailable. Let your absence speak volumes. Let your boundaries redefine your value. And remember, when you stop being constantly available, you start becoming deeply respected. There's something deeply powerful about mystery, about not being fully seen, fully available, fully known at all times. And yet, in this age of constant connectivity, we're losing that power. We overshare, we overexpose, we make ourselves emotionally and mentally accessible 24/7. And in doing so, we lose a very important psychological advantage, the strength that comes from restraint. Let's be real. When you're too available, you kill the very thing that makes you magnetic, mystery. You eliminate the tension, the intrigue, the sense of curiosity people feel when they don't know everything about you, when they can't reach you at any time, when your time and attention feel like a gift instead of a guarantee. Think about the most respected people you know, not just the ones who are liked, but the ones who command a room, who draw people in. Chances are they're not always in reach. They don't constantly explain themselves. They don't need to show up everywhere to be felt. That's not an accident. That's intentional. There's a kind of emotional scarcity that builds value. Just like in economics, when something is rare, it's treasured. When something is common, it's taken for granted. Your energy works the same way. If you make yourself available to everyone at all times, people stop seeing your presence as something meaningful. It becomes background noise, white noise, a presence without impact. The mind is wired to desire what it can't easily have. This isn't manipulation, it's just psychology. When you're slightly out of reach, people lean in. They pay attention. They wonder what you're doing, how you think, why you move the way you do. And that wondering creates presence even in your absence. It makes your eventual appearance more impactful. That's the power of mystery. It lets silence speak louder than words ever could. Now, some people hear that and immediately think of games. They think withholding your attention means you're trying to manipulate others, play hard to get, make people chase you. But that's not what I'm talking about. This isn't about performance. It's about principle. It's about reclaiming your energy, your privacy, and your peace, and realizing that those things don't have to be constantly broadcast in order to be real. Look at how we behave online. We feel the pressure to post every thought, every win, every moment. We constantly explain ourselves, justify our absence, seek validation through overexposure. And yet, the most influential people, the ones with real authority and presence, they don't do that. They let their results speak. They move with intention, not explanation. They allow mystery to do the talking. That's because mystery, when grounded in authenticity, creates respect. People start to value your words more when you don't offer them all the time. They listen more carefully when you speak less often. They notice your actions more when they don't always know what you're doing. And most importantly, they start to respect your boundaries when you stop offering unlimited access to your time, your thoughts, and your emotional labor. Now let's take it a layer deeper. At the philosophical level, too much availability is often rooted in fear, a fear of being forgotten, a fear of being misunderstood, a fear of being left out. So we overcompensate, we make ourselves overly visible, overly accommodating, overly on, because we think if we're not, we'll disappear. But here's the paradox: the more you show up without intention, the less you're noticed. The more you give without discernment, the less you're valued. Being selective with your presence doesn't mean being selfish. It means being strategic. It means recognizing that mystery is not about hiding who you are. It's about reserving your energy for the moments and people who matter. It's about having enough self-respect to say, not everyone gets access to me. Not every situation deserves my full emotional engagement. And let's not confuse silence with weakness. It takes more strength to hold back than to react. It takes more power to sit with yourself than to constantly seek affirmation. The person who can walk away, who can stay silent, who doesn't need to prove themselves every moment, that's the person who owns the room when they enter it. You see, mystery doesn't isolate you. It elevates you. It allows people to meet you at a higher level on your terms. It forces them to slow down and be more present when you speak. It teaches them not to assume your attention is easy to win. And when you move like that, when your availability is thoughtful, not automatic, you stop blending in and start standing out. One of the most misunderstood forms of power is stillness. When you're not reacting, not chasing, not filling the silence, just existing with confidence. That's what mystery gives you, the space to be still and still be seen. Not through noise, but through presence. That's real influence. That's real value. So ask yourself, are you showing up because it serves you, or because you're afraid not to? Are you being present because it aligns with your purpose, or because you feel obligated to be seen? Because the difference matters. One gives you power, the other drains it. When you begin to pull back, not out of ego, but out of clarity, you begin to reset the narrative. You start communicating not with words, but with presence. You let your silence speak volumes. You stop performing and start leading. And in that quiet confidence, people begin to notice you, not because you forced them to, but because they had to. Let's talk about something we don't always admit. What happens to us internally when we make ourselves too available? Because the damage doesn't just show up in how people treat us. It shows up in how we start to feel about ourselves. When you're constantly available to others, emotionally, mentally, physically, you begin to experience a slow, quiet erosion of your own energy. And that erosion often begins long before you